Hello, welcome to Might Be Awesome. My name is Sam Basher.
I'm DJ Wooldridge.
And this is Miss Trisha Hirschberger. Yay!
Hello, friends.
Welcome to our Game of Thrones after show. Today we're talking about Season 8, Episode 4, The Last of the Starks. The Battle of Winterfell is over, and a new chapter of Westeros begins. What a lame IMDb synopsis that is. But let's go ahead and hop into it, because boy howdy, when they said they were going to start making these episodes a wee bit longer, they got their money's worth. They really shoved a lot of plot into this episode, so we got a lot to break down. But overall thoughts, kicking it off. Trisha, I have a cold, so I'm not going to talk so much in this episode. Go ahead, take it away.
I had very mixed feelings about this episode. There was a lot that hit me right in the feels, and there was a lot that I also felt like, that might have been some sloppy writing. Like, I wanted a little bit more from that. But I do also feel like we return to some of the things that I love about the series, those interpersonal character moments, and especially those where we get to see that characters are not necessarily all good or all bad. It's a very complex issue. Yeah. And, you know, making us think, ooh, don't do that. That's a bad action, but also kind of do that, and I'd get it if you did. Yeah. So there were enough of those that I was happy with last night's episode.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I also had mixed feelings. I enjoyed most of it. I especially liked some of there's some scheming behind the scenes, some political scheming.
I love that.
Yeah, big fan of that. And I'm glad for the longer show time, because the episode time, because it gives you more room to breathe, because it kind of felt like the end of last season where we're taking our time and then we're not. And then like you get one episode breather, and that one episode breather feels more substantial when that episode's an hour and a half as opposed to like 50 minutes.
For me, I enjoyed it kind of through and through, but I do agree there probably are some moments that we could really pick apart, because we should. Should for writing reasons and also story points for certain characters. That's nice and vague. We're not doing vague stuff here. This is not spoiler free. This is spoiler filled.
What are you talking about, Sam?
I know, we got to hop right into it. So first up, the episode opens with the funeral.
Yes.
And I thought that was a very sweet moment. I thought John gave a good speech.
He's good at the speeches.
He does. Yeah. He's good.
That's why everybody loves him.
That's a leadership quality.
Whoa.
Speechins.
Although I feel like there weren't as many people on the pyres as I expected to see.
Yeah. I will say I was like, oh, and then I realized the pyres were like pyramided of bodies. So there was like multiple layers of people, and I was like,
bit of a dog pile situation.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is. But I agree with you. It was I expected more. Maybe that's how little there are people in the North at this point. That's all that was left.
I like that in the first couple episodes, Theon shows up in the North, and like Sansa's like, "Oh, thank God you're here," and we're like, "Is that something?" It's like, no, we just needed someone to care when he died. Yeah. Like we needed one person to be like, and we'll go ahead and put some on you. I'm like his friend was he's had very few allies up there at that point. So
understandably so. Understandably so.
And it was sad to see Jorah and Lyanna, like you feel it, and John does give a good speech. Man, you stop giving good speeches if you don't want to be king. Man.
Yeah, you gotta cut it out.
Yeah.
I was interesting to see. So we got the moment of sad. We're burning everybody. Dany's sad about Jorah, all that stuff. But then everybody is like high off survival, and we get the big celebration, because you should probably.
Well, they're pretty somber at first, I feel like, until Dany steps forward and is like, you know what, I'm gonna give them permission to celebrate, and I will do that by giving Gendry a lordship,
outing him, and then giving him like, don't worry, gang, it's all good. You get to be king or lord. Or, sorry,
look how nice of a regent I am.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like that move was.
You were the lead blacksmith, and now you're the leader of an entire township. Go ahead.
Even though your dad tried to kill me multiple times, I'm the better person.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I think she needs to work on they say everything after a but like negates everything that came before. So at least she ended with the positive stuff. Her pacing's weird, because she leads with like, hey, I'm gonna kill you, but then YOLO, never mind. Just kidding. You're now a part of your household. So it's like, good. You don't. I kind of beat myself a little bit before you got there.
Yeah, you beat me up before you gave me the gift.
I also think that her face afterwards, her like, I did well. After every time she does something, I'm like, you're giving yourself away.
Yeah, it's good to pat yourself on the back when you get someone a gift.
She needed to hang out with Littlefinger a little bit, maybe, to learn some of those, like a little bit of the.
They never meet? No, they never met.
Sansa's got that Littlefinger Cersei poker face thing down. Yeah. Dany doesn't have it yet.
A lot of stares between Dany and Sansa. Sometimes at each other, but overall just like at their actions. They're like,
Something I'm mixed feelings about all that, because something that I think is really cool is that I think the real power dynamic, the way the show's handled its power dynamic, is essentially it's between John's in there, but it's essentially the machinations are between three women.
Yeah.
Dany, Cersei, and Sansa. The issue with that is they're all kind of being not great. It's like women scheming against other women and stuff like that. It's like, I don't know if that's the best. Like, I don't know if that's the, I don't know.
I didn't
Best
read
representation.
it like
I
that,
don't
but I
know.
can't say that I disagree with you.
Yeah.
When you put it that way, I think this is a moment where they show that we don't really have a clear hero and a clear villain. I mean, we can definitely say that Sansa skews way more towards the hero side, and Cersei skews way more towards the villain side.
And then it
and
seems like
Dany's
Dany's in-
fluctuating in the middle. Although this episode was much more like she's with Cersei.
Well, it's funny because you can tell when there's a moment at that party where she starts you can see the moment she starts spiraling hard. Like you can see the lights go off. Like, oh, Jorah's gone. Oh, Jon's another Targaryen. Oh, none of these people like. You can see it behind her eyes. Like, somebody needs to pull her out, take her to a spa or something.
And I would say that's that's great as far as her performance of the material she was given. I feel like that transition. I don't like that it kind of happened all in one episode. Yes, we've had hints at it before. We've talked about it on the show to death that they might be leading Dany down the villain path, and that's where we could end up. But I do feel like it was a very hard right angle turn in this episode specifically. Yeah. And I would have loved to see it a little more gradual and make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, because in the episode between, like, episode 2, you get a hint of, like, she's starting to spiral a little bit, but you have a whole battle to kind of distract yourself. Like an hour of TV time to kind of not think about that. But yeah, they've been sowing the seeds a little bit. Honestly, we've mentioned, like, the whole, like, she could go mad like her dad did, and it's like, I don't know if I like that overall. But what they're showing right now, how isolated she is, even though she's surrounded by allies, basically, that how I'm understanding more that idea for this character, or at least that arc for her.
Yeah.
And the end of the episode, I thought, did a really good job of making us want to side with Daenerys, even though she's in this tough predicament.
Yeah, and especially since her longest running allies that really understood her best are both gone at this point. And I think when you talk about, like, I don't know if I like that, it's reminding me a lot of last season where it's like, could Arya or Sansa kill each other? And it's like, rewatching that season before this season, I was like, it actually does track because they didn't like each other, and two, they haven't seen each other since then, and they've both been through a lot. So it logistically it tracks. It doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? And so with this stuff with Dany and Sansa and her at each other's throats, it's like logistically it tracks because all Sansa's seen is like hardcore Dany. She hasn't seen a lot of the positive Dany that we've seen over the seasons, but it just feels like everybody just hug it out, man. Like, come on, we're all in the... And it's something I do like about this episode because it does drive home the idea that, like, the thing that united us is defeated. So what's keeping... So, like, the Free Folk are like, cool, we're out, you know what I mean? And, like, it's suddenly that thing that united us all is taken care of, and now we're left with, like, each other, and maybe we all don't like each other.
Yeah, the thing that doesn't sit well with me about it is I can totally see her going the villain route, and again, we've talked about that forever. But I don't like how quick she was to dismiss that she is the one who was going to break the wheel and be the benevolent ruler and the freer of slaves and the breaker of chains and all that. And how quickly she just dismissed all those ideals that we'd spent so many seasons building her character up to just say, well, it's my destiny and sometimes the ends justify the means, which was a very, like, okay, you accepted that real fast.
Yeah.
I actually, you're not wrong. I did buy it, though, because she's like, no, I get rid of tyranny at any cost. You're like, all right.
Yeah.
Someone's got to put a mirror up to her because this is not making a lot of sense. But hey.
Also, because it was Tyrion and Varys, like, hey, maybe it's like, listen, we've spent a season and a half for you telling me to do this, and guess what? In that time, I've lost 2 of my dragons, and I've lost half of my troops, and it's time to get
She's not wrong.
Yeah.
She's not wrong, which is why, again, like I said at the end of the episode, we're like, okay, part of us is. So, again, not a clear villain there. But
I also hope if I was a peasant in this world and Cersei was like, hey, no, come out, hang out, Red Keep, I'd be like, I think I'm going to stay in my farm outside of the gate. I'm good.
Cersei is doing a good job of saying this foreign dragon queen with her savage barbarian people wants to come over and take over. So as far as the people of King's Landing are concerned, Cersei's the better one to side with.
It also blows
Do
that...
they not know that Cersei blew up half the city? Do they not remember that?
They weren't there for that. But again, it's that idea. No, but it is a good, like, it's the same thing. Like, they just saved the world, and because nobody was there to see it, they're like, nah.
Yeah.
Now the whole North is in the position Jon was, where, hey, this went down, and everybody's like, whatever.
Yeah.
That blows.
Yeah.
That blows.
And there were a lot of our characters dismissing things in this episode that were our main characters that we actually saw that I feel like probably didn't sit right with a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Davos called it out with the Lord of Light. Just like, okay, I guess he's out now. And that weird, like, hey, we need to get Tormund, Ghost, Sam, and Gilly out of the show. So why don't we just have this, like, real quick goodbye scene where Jon's like, peace out, y'all. And that's their farewell for the entire series.
I don't know about Sam and Gilly. Sam definitely should have died in that battle. It was just he was so ill-equipped to handle anything.
Around.
But anyway, it was a bummer. It was a bummer with Ghost. It was a bummer with Ghost and Tormund. Just like bye-bye.
Tormund's felt like I'll just say I did like Tormund and Jon actually having a moment. Ghost. Literally, Jon and Ghost didn't stand near each other.
He didn't even pet him.
You could feed my dog, right? I'm gonna go.
Yeah, Ghost should probably go with you too. And then not even a see ya, boy. Like nothing.
No treats. Not a thing.
No.
But, hey, moving our way through the episode, we do have, during our big banquet scene, we have them playing a drinking game, Jaime, Tyrion, Pod, and Brienne. And I thought that scene was good until they called her out for being a virgin. That kind of that didn't feel great.
There was an organic way for her to reveal that later in the episode, so I don't know why that happened.
But, okay. You've real life played Never Have I Ever.
Yeah.
How many of those questions are about sexy stuff?
All the time.
Right.
Yeah, the game
so it
is built
totally
on
makes sense that they would be like, never have I ever slept with someone.
Also,
someone's sister.
Speaking of sexy time, there's a shot where two characters are talking in the back. Pod's got two women, and he like goes on like.
Wait, did you notice
still doing Pod.
when they said haven't slept with anyone? Pod drank.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Oh, I interpreted that of like, this is awkward drink.
It could have been that, but I was also like, maybe that's why they returned his money because nothing ever happened. Maybe he did sing to them.
Yeah.
I think he sang to them. I think so too. Because I'm like, you drank. I didn't take it as awkwardness. I thought he was playing the game.
That was the look on his face, like.
I was like, ah!
That's great.
Yeah.
But hey, yeah, he left with some girls, so good for him.
Interpret that as you will.
And Brienne and Jaime got together. How do we feel? That's what people have wanted for years. This is their Christmas present. How do you feel?
Yes and no.
The end of the episode, I don't know how I feel, but during that scene, I was happy.
Yeah, during that scene, I thought it was great because we've seen these characters be so conflicted together and not really understanding their own emotions towards each other. So kind of the way that played out, I thought is probably very realistic to how it would have played out. But it was really heart-wrenching to see.
When he left?
The entire arc. Because they got together and I think everyone was like, well, yeah, they both feel really conflicted about this, so I guess it could lead down that path, but it can't stay like this.
Yeah.
Because he's not a great person, and there's no way he's just going to be like, you know what? I'm giving up my life of being a crappy person, and I'm going to be a good guy that just settles down with a good girl in the north. There's no way that's how Jaime's going to end up.
I mean,
you want him to, though.
You want him to for her. I wanted him to for her.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely.
I wanted her to be happy.
That was definitely more of a Brienne story, I think, than a Jaime. Also, props to her for not thinking about it, but I couldn't help it. It's like, oh, he slept with his sister, though. That's gross.
I think he had to throw that away a while ago.
Yeah. Also, that's gross.
Yeah. That's yucky. Yeah. That's exactly. No, I get that feeling. No. But I actually liked the way that their scene played out, where it was mainly like he was being like forward, but also she was like, eh. But also she reciprocated, showing that she had interest in this and was kind of like taking control. I thought the way they displayed them getting together was mature, and it was at least a non-icky sexual scene in Game of Thrones.
Agreed.
Also, they were cut away, which they didn't do with Arya. But speaking of Arya, Arya and Gendry, Gendry was picking up some vibes that Arya wasn't putting down.
Yeah. She said, "Get lost."
I actually like the way this played out because it makes sense that like, oh crap, I'm a lord now. What do lords need a lady? I love
and the
Arya.
battle's over. What am I going to do?
Boom. And I think that was an interpretation of a lot of what was going on. Not only were people literally drunk, but they were also, again, high off of just, damn, I'm alive. And so he's like, cool, let's get hitched. Which if I was in Gendry, I'd probably do something similarly stupid. And Arya's like, yeah. If nothing else, that on its own is evidence that he doesn't understand her. He has no idea who this person is anymore. And
that he's kind of clueless as to everything that's going on. Yeah. Like, I when that moment happened, when the proposal happened, I was like, whoa. Yeah. Because there is another alternate storyline where Gendry could have said, like, we're going to go south together. like your issues are my issues. We're gonna take down Cersei, and then we can all settle down. No. So I did feel like it was they wrote him a little naive in the way that it played out. But I mean, I guess he's a little naive.
A little bit, and also his like wheelhouse has been pretty small. It's been like be either lead blacksmith or assisted to the blacksmith.
That's true.
And now you're king.
Right.
I mean, you're Lord, but you get what I mean. He's a leader now. I want to shout out Tormund for being torn up for about 2 seconds and then immediately moving. That was like funny. The show very rarely actually makes me giggle, and that was genuinely a good moment. Because actually, weirdly, I felt bad, but I'm like, wait, no, he's trash man. Like I don't feel bad for you whatsoever.
I think he's talked about sleeping with a bear. I think that was a conversation that was had.
You mentioned feeling icky about Jaime. It's like Tormund's you got to be real careful about where he's been.
I mean, he likes her because she's the big woman.
Yeah, the big woman's still here.
Also, Sansa and the Hound reconnect, and it took at first because when Sansa was like, "Yeah, all those things put me where I am," I'm like, "It's kind of a weird."
That was a very weird scene.
But I liked it because I think the way I interpreted that scene is the Hound is clearly unable to let go of some things because he's not enjoying himself at the party, and that's her saying like, "Hey, you need to compartment. You need to see where that stuff has brought you, and move on." Yeah, because I went through all this stuff and I moved on. Yeah, you can move on.
Well, and I think there's a difference between saying I went through all this stuff and I moved on, or I've been through some shit and now I'm stronger for it, versus kind of a feeling like if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be where I am today, which I feel like the scene kind of unintentionally rode that line, which is why people came out of it saying that was a little weird, and I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah. I kind of interpreted it the same way as way back when we had the in the sept sex. Yeah. That people were like, that didn't play the way it should have. Well, I think they intended it to be like a very like I am now stronger because of what I've been through, as opposed to I'm happy I went through that because it made me better or something like that. It's a very fine line.
I think the initial gut reaction is icky. That was a weird line for her to say. But I had a similar interpretation, but I understand why it's definitely a lot of people are split on the interpretation of this scene. It's a weird one, but I did want to give a shout out to when she mentioned how she got rid of Ramsay and she says hounds, and it's like, that was
fun.
Yeah, good writing.
Yeah.
We also at the end of the party, Dany and Jon need to talk. They need to talk, and Dany is right. Dany tells Jon like, listen, if you tell anybody, it's out there, and there's no backsies.
Oh, so you were like, Dany's right. Wow.
That's not necessarily how I felt, but by the end of the episode, she was. She was right.
I saw that.
I think so. So immediately, Jon is like, "Oh, I can't tell a lie or whatever," and so he tells his siblings. He goes,
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah. Thank you. He goes to the Godwood and tells Arya and Sansa about his.
Why did he do that?
Technically, he lets Bran tell the.
Actually, I really liked that Bran scene where Bran's like, "It's up to you." I actually kind of like Bran this season, like where he's like, I've got all the knowledge, but it's not really my responsibility.
It's your choice.
Yeah, it's your choice. I actually really like that. And what I don't know is why Dany and Jon were like, we got to tell Varys and Tyrion right off the bat. Because if anybody can help us navigate this the correct way, it's those two guys.
Well, because when Varys knows, everybody knows. And I think anyone who's been around King's Landing long enough knows that's
definitely not Jon and Dany. They haven't been around King's Landing. They don't know.
Yeah, well, I think at those would Tyrion, be the worst to tell.
At least Tyrion, I would want to tell Tyrion because it's like we have to have somebody help us figure out.
Tyrion turned right around and told Varys.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's the trustworthy one.
Well, but Sansa told Tyrion.
Overall, no, I'd have to agree that probably shouldn't have told anyone until way later.
I feel like all these,
now.
We talked about this a little bit before. It's like even Jon telling Dany, let's wait till after all the wars are done, and then we can have these conversations.
Lies are bad. Santa doesn't like when you lie, but don't reveal it now.
Or how much are we seeing that Jon is Ned all over again, for better and for worse? But yeah, I interpreted that scene with Dany. That sat a little weird to me because, like you guys were saying, at the banquet, you could see it happening in her head where she's like, everything is awful. Like you could see her kind of breaking down, and then all of a sudden she's in there making out with Jon, and I was like, what's she up to? Yeah. There is an end game to this. And so even though like in the inside the episode later, Benioff and Weiss were like, oh, well, she still really loves him. To me, that scene played like a manipulation more than a, I just want to be with you because I'm so in love with you. To me, that felt like a very calculated, do you love me? Because if you do, you won't tell a goddamn soul about this.
Yeah. I got that too. But also, I kind of agree that she's right, though.
Yeah.
Again, just...
Wait.
You can talk about things at later dates. You don't need to have the confrontation at the Chili's. You can go home and have the confrontation later. You don't need to have it at the Walmart.
I was also... I would have been interested if the episode had couched that conversation more along the lines of Jon being like, listen, I finally know who I am. Like, that's a big deal for me, and you're asking me not to tell my siblings?
I would have loved it if he stood up for himself a little bit. I agree.
Because if I were Jon, it's like, that would be everything to me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a person now. You know, that's not what that means, but that's what would it mean to him. Yeah. You know?
And the fact that when he did say, like, I need to tell my family they're my family, she completely dismissed that. Again, made me think, like, is she really in this because she loves him?
Yeah. I'll be interested to see, because there's because parts of this remind me of the conflict between Sansa and Arya last season, which kind of felt like not necessarily conflict for conflict's sake, because it does track logistically. This has got me worried that, like, maybe they won't stick the landing, and not so much that, like, oh, they're gonna do something that hurts my feelings, but more like, because on the one hand, this could be the characters confronting their worst impulses, because both Jon and Dany are dealing with the things that have made them successful in the past are kind of undoing them right now. And that could be their last hurdle, and their characters learn from that and grow, and their last conflict is internally with themselves and they overcome it, yay. Or it undoes them, and at least they were around to take out the Night King, so even though they lost, the world is saved. You know what I mean? But it could also just be, I don't know. It could, both of those, I think, would be interesting tracks to take. I hope they figure it out, personally. But I don't want Dany to become bad, because we've had however many seasons.
That's where they're going. Yeah, see, and yes, her character arc has been so beautiful since the beginning, and I feel like it doesn't do justice to her character to just at the very end be like, and now she's crazy and evil.
Yeah. And also since, like, hey, look at all these powerful women, but now Jon's on the throne.
Which, I mean, then there was that whole conversation about if you need a cock or not.
Yeah.
Which didn't sit right with a lot of people, too. And I get it from a perspective of we're having a conversation that, like, yes, but traditionally the throne is handed down to the next male heir, and that's just the way it is, and we need to talk about that because that's reality in this universe, versus we also believe that that's important. And again, I think that was a very fine line that people interpreted different ways when they saw that. But to your point, DJ, about where we kind of hope characters go, I think a lot of times in this series when things have felt like sloppy writing or didn't make sense, we're like, yeah, but they could be doing something bigger with that later. There could be a payoff later. Like the fact that Arya did not actually finish her training, yet can still wear all the faces and spend so much time over there. And like that was a very like, okay, well, maybe they're doing something with that we'll find out later. Now that we're running out of episodes, we can't dismiss these things as this is going to be a bigger thing. Just wait for it. Now we know that like that's what it is. Like writing off Ghost the way that they did. Unfortunately, that's what it is.
Unless he comes riding in on a dragon at the end.
And twice the size, so he's a giant dire wolf. Really quick, talking about villains, Bron is so smart. He's such an intelligent human being.
I really like that scene.
It was a good scene because it was so positive for just a second. Like, oh, Tyrion can now make the tall jokes at Jaime's expense. That's so funny. And immediately Bron's like, no, I'm done fighting. You guys fight, and whoever wins, I win, too.
I like the callback also to, listen, you promised me at the beginning. I even turned to my wife before he said anything. I was like, I hope they bring that line back. Because that was you'll pay me double. And I also liked his point of like, oh, a mercenary can't rule a house. Well, guess how all these houses got started?
Kill enough people, you get to be king. So it's like, and also it's like, oh man, I think we might have to kill Bron, which bums me out. But also I think he's tired. And that's okay. You're allowed to be tired at this point.
I think Bron gets high guard.
Yeah,
I think Bron's going to be the one that makes out okay on this one.
It might happen. It might happen.
Speaking of calling back lines, I think Varys needed to remember that he promised Dany that before he betrayed her, he'd tell her. He'd be like, hey, you're being crazy.
Yeah, but Varys going to be Varys. Like, that's who he's been the whole time. And the Varys and Tyrion scenes in this episode were some of my favorite of the entire episode.
Agreed.
It was returning me back to what I love about Game of Thrones, like season 1 Littlefinger Varys
Yeah.
scenes, and just the plotting behind the scenes is what we're all trying to figure out. So I feel like those scenes are so great because we get a peek into what's happening. So A+. I like those
Are you
scenes.
Varys or Tyrion? Are you siding with Varys or Tyrion?
I think Tyrion has played a little sloppy, and I think Varys is playing smarter right now.
He's playing closer to the vest, so I want to see him actually make a big move. I did really enjoy him being honest with Dany, and I liked their scene when they were at Dragonstone. Did have questions of how quickly they can get between places. I know we were talking about this before of like the map, like people are moving really quick. I know they're saying that time is moving faster now.
Yeah, because they talk about Jon.
Still.
I agree with you, but they do talk about like Jon. It's going to take a fortnight for Jon to get here, and then next episode he's there. So it's like we're jumping over like days and weeks of time.
Which also, it would be more understandable when we know how much time is passing that Varys is suddenly like, cool, I think I'm jumping camps.
Yeah.
Because to us, it feels like it happens overnight, but maybe not.
Maybe not. But speaking of people dying, we mentioned that earlier. It's always shocking how much blood is inside those dragons. When Viserion got hit, you're like, whoa!
Yeah.
It's like a sprinkler. And then, we lost
was out of nowhere.
Rhaegar, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boom!
He gets an arrow to the face. And the body and the neck. And the
lot.
Yeah.
The wing, too. Yeah, he's
Well,
got
there's a lot of scorpions now, and they're upgraded.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're all around. It looked like, the way they described it, because I was trying to figure this out, it looks like it almost surrounds the city now. They almost have like one on every like post.
Yeah.
That's a lot. They made those very quickly.
Yeah. Well, or again, maybe it's just been a lot of time.
Yeah,
like
we
maybe,
just don't know.
Because that whole time
Right.
they were fighting a whole undead army. They've just been preparing down there. And
Yeah.
also, Cersei and Euron is still the grossest relationship on the show.
You're saying grosser than this twin incest.
It's just the look of disdain. He's so stoked.
so slimy.
And the look of disdain on her face. Like, if a woman ever looked at me like that, I would jump off a building. Like, for the love of God.
And instead he's like,
She hates him so much. Oh, it makes me so uncomfortable.
But you guys called it that she's going to use the pregnancy or tricking him into thinking that.
to legitimize her heir.
Yeah.
So now talking about time moving quicker, this makes way more sense. It was like, didn't they like bang 12 hours ago? Like, she's like, but I definitely got a baby. It's coming now.
Yeah. And then, so the ships are attacked and they are wrecked. I like that scene. Good thing Tyrion can swim. It was a little weird that like the one person we got was Missandei. Hey.
And how many people from Euron's fleet know would have known who she is and that she's important?
This is definitely...
I mean, Cersei would know because she was there when they had the big meeting about the White Walkers, the Whites. She was there and at Dany's side, but still, how did you find her in the big mess of people?
Yeah.
Why don't you just kind of go by with a net and just like
Scoop them all up.
You could have gotten Tyrion.
And also, like, this exists for the same reason Rickon showed up at the beginning of the Battle of the Bastards. It's to make the battle personal. And I think this works better than that because at least Missandei's been around. It's not like Rickon where she vanished for seasons and now she's back just to die.
Oh, I hated that.
It is tough, though, because to motivate our leading lady and Grey Worm by extension, it's the one
sucked.
girl
Person
of
of
color
color,
on the
yeah.
show. You've only got 2 people of color on the show and you just killed the one woman of color on the show.
That sucked so hard. And honestly, how many of us felt like, Tyrion, you fool, when he was like, yes, I get it. You're trying to talk Dany not into just coming in and slaughtering a bunch of innocent people, but your other plan is to reason with Cersei? Like when he's like, you're not a monster. All of us were like, what?
I did like that scene.
I did like the scene, but also, yes, because
Like this plan has not worked before.
again, she blew up half the city. Those are just people.
Yeah.
They're like, you got the sept, but like, those are still just people.
Yeah. I like that scene because it showed that Tyrion really cared about his sister. You saw another moment of humanity in Cersei before she like flipped the switch back on. Like, no, I'm full on villain at this point. And also, I thought Tyrion was going to eat it because then all we're left with is Varys and he's jumping ship. Like Dany's done for if like Tyrion eats it right now. But I guess he's still got. He needs to redeem himself because I realized I don't think he's made a good call since he's been with Dany.
And Dany is going to blame him for this.
Yeah.
Like Missandei's death is going to be on Tyrion.
Yeah.
Oof. That's gonna be a rough one. But lastly, I wanted to talk about Jaime heading back down to Winterfell. It's kind of like the last thing that we haven't touched on yet.
Yeah.
How are we feeling about that? At the end of the episode, we get the reflection from the show creators, and they're talking about how it's like an addiction, it's like an obsession, and he reflects back on how all of his bad decisions he's ever made are for Cersei.
Yeah.
Like, he's not saying that he didn't make those decisions.
Yeah.
He made them, but he made them for a very specific reason, and it's for Cersei.
Yeah.
And I get it. He literally just got up to Winterfell. It's been maybe 48 hours, and he's turning back around and coming back down. Are we okay with that decision? And does it make sense for his character?
I feel like that decision made a lot of sense for his character because not necessarily because of the Cersei pool, but because I think he, in not necessarily falling in love with Brienne herself, but falling in love with the idea that he could be a good guy and he could have like the good traditional life, then kind of coming to terms with reality of like, I pushed a kid out the window, I strangled my cousin, like I'm not a good guy. And when that realization sits in him, he feels like what he's doing right now is kind of a lie. And he needs to get back to it. That's how I interpreted it, and I was okay with it.
Do you think he's going to kill Cersei?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
That
either him
whole,
or
like,
Arya.
I did this for Cersei. I did this for Cersei. I liked interpreting that a little bit better of like his own self-reflection as opposed to a Cersei addiction. But inside the episode, they called it a Cersei addiction.
Also, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, next episode of the episode after, it's like, we see Arya, we see Jaime. They're both heading, Arya, Jaime, who's going to kill Cersei? Arya, Jaime. And it turns out, reveal, Arya's there to kill Dany.
Whoa.
And then, I don't know. if she
That's what
actually kills her or
everyone's
not.
like, Cersei, doesn't Dany also have green eyes like Cersei? And I'm like, Targaryens have purple eyes. Oh, wait, book stuff. So I'm very confused. But people think that might be the case. Or I still like the Arya with Jaime's face.
Ooh, how does he?
So if Arya takes down Jaime
Yeah.
and then takes down Cersei with Jaime's face.
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
I couldn't see really Jaime taking down Cersei mainly because she's smarter than that. She wouldn't let him get that close.
Speaking of fan theories, I ran across an interesting one, but we're tight on time. I'm going to save it for the Patreon.
Great idea.
Yeah, I'm going to save it
Interesting.
for the Patreon.
Well, let's take a quick look at that.
So the prophecy is that Cersei will be betrayed, which will lead to her demise by one of her brothers.
Oh,
And
okay.
Cersei, her whole life, thought it was Tyrion.
So, of course, it can't be.
So, guys, you can actually click right up here to go check that out right now. It's going to be a blast. We hope you enjoy. And thank you so much for watching here on Might Be Awesome. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and comment down below what you thought of the episode, what your theories are for how this series is going to wrap up. But also make sure you follow Trisha everywhere that matters.
Oh, thank you so much. You can do that at @GRLTrish on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, or Trisha Hirschberger on YouTube and Twitch.
Boom.
What would you rate the episode?
Ooh, I mean, I think I liked it more than you guys. Give it an 8 out of 10.
I give it an 8 out of 10.
I think I'd give it an 8 out of 10, too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
DJ Talks Trash, at Sam Basher, at Might Be Social on Twitter and Instagram. And we got more videos coming out this week leading up to Detective Pikachu. We got a really cool explainer coming out and our review, which is going to be awesome. So make sure you don't miss that. And until next time, stay
Frosty.
Why do I keep doing
I don't
that?
know.
Why do I
don't
keep
know.
ending
It's
that
a
way?
trap you set for yourself.
Cheers.